So let's talk about earnings season.
Hmm.
Okay, let's talk about earnings season and uh so for people out there, can you tell them what earnings season is?
Yeah, so they break up the year right quarterly, the fiscal year, and they'll go through, and these companies, because they're publicly traded, are going to have to report to shareholders, report to the public,
Yes,
what
sir. Yes, sir.
they made, earnings per share,
Hmm.
how much money they made for every share of stock that is currently, outstanding.
Yeah.
Right, so every share of stock they made, and they're looking for, certain estimates that, they project out, and the analysts look at all that stuff and look at all the numbers. People far smarter than me that have far more sophisticated technology, but they're able to, kind of project what they're expecting, the company to report. And
Yeah.
then, when the companies report, they report on, what their revenues were.
Right.
They usually do a conference call, what, their earnings per share is or
Right.
was for that, for the previous quarter. And then they start giving, some kind of guidance, looking forward, like somebody like CVS,
Yeah.
who has, increased their guidance, for the rest of the year, they're on, on their profits. They're continuing to grow, especially in a time like this. It's nice to have one or two of those that are able to, continue to rise in price.
Right. Right. So at any like earnings season, I guess there's one earnings season per quarter. And
Correct.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
and generally companies there there's a lot of different companies that have earnings each day. Maybe it's throughout the quarter, I guess it could be any day, but generally it's like a week where it's like a whole, most of the S&P 500 and that type of thing, where they all sort of come out around the same time with their
Yeah.
earnings reports and stuff.
Yeah, so usually when it's when earnings season comes around, right, every 3 months. So I mean, here it is. They're reporting now for the previous
Hmm.
3 months. So they're reporting
Hmm.
now on let me see, January, March, April, May, June. They're reporting July, August, September, October. Yeah, so they're going August, September, October right now, and they're reporting now in November for their earnings for the last 3 months. And
Yeah.
again, with the Fed raising rates and inflation running hot, you know what I mean, prices going up, so people are tend to spend less,
Yeah.
right? Because they're not getting as much for their money now.
Yeah.
So that's going to hurt businesses, right? So if people are not spending as much money, well, then they're not making as much money, all right?
Right.
So
Right.
when they
And
miss on earnings, again, it can have, it's crazy because it can have adverse effects on markets in different ways. There's times where they beat
right.
earnings on both sides, and then
Uh-huh.
because someone will just say like Netflix, like, oh, you know what, they beat on earnings, they beat on revenue, everything was great,
And it still
but
went down.
their guidance on they're expecting to add another 1.1 million users, and they only added
Yeah.
950,000 users,
And that caused the
and
stock to drop.
and it could
Absolutely.
cause the stock to drop. You know what I mean?
Yo.
Something crazy and again, that all goes into that forward looking, the guidance
Yeah.
on where they think the company's going and whether or not
Yeah.
Wall Street believes they're going to continue to be profitable for the quarter. Because again, if they're not profitable, well then nobody wants to invest in them.
Right. 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 And I saw, and generally the the big tech guys are, they've been profitable like for the last 10 years every quarter. But Apple, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are the main four that I'm speaking of. And
Mhm.
you know uh I don't remember a quarter where they haven't met uh you know expectations, but I mean, with the way the world is right now, something might happen here coming up. I just don't know if they can continue that momentum, in these times. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, again, it's tough, man. I mean, we're still dealing with COVID backups and supply chain issues. I mean, I got friends of mine that work in, the sales industry and, I guess in different parts of the sales industry. And, they're still having a hard time getting parts, getting the supplies they need. So all that stuff being backed up,
Yeah.
again, still that stuff's going to play a part on,
Yeah.
how profitable they are and, how things are slowing down and, when things get more expensive,
Yeah.
it's, what I mean? It's tough to spend that dollar, you know what I mean? When I used to be able to get 20 pieces of bubble gum for $1, now I'm only getting 10. Well, my money's not going as far.
Absolutely. And and with the chip shortage that we had, or do we still have a chip shortage? I don't know, but I know we had one for a long time, and that affected companies like Microsoft and Apple, with the different electronics that they had, and it affected AMD and Nvidia
And even the car companies, man. Isn't it
and the
amazing?
car
I
companies.
mean, the car
Absolutely,
companies were. I mean, they're still buying used vehicles from people. I
yeah,
mean, I got a friend of mine just. I mean, made something like $18,000 on his truck that he'd had for 2 years. So,
really,
yeah, and again, when you talk about supply chain issues, I mean, you go back and I think it was just Ford not so long ago was talking about they're having a hard time just getting parts, not even chips anymore,
yeah,
like getting the parts to put together. I mean, to put vehicles together. So, all that
crazy,
stuff's still playing a part, man. It's still lingering, and it's going to take some time to come up out of that.
crazy. I wonder if that's a reason that these thieves were stealing what, those converters from the trucks,
The
the
catalytic converters.
catalytic converters. I wonder if it was because the shortage.
It
Maybe they
could
were.
be. I'll tell you, there must have been a shortage back when I was in high school too, because I remember Joker stealing them out of a high school parking lot, taking them out of kids' cars, man.
Did you?
I don't know what a catalytic converter even does for a vehicle, but I promise you this is a hot commodity, boy, because they're still stealing
That is wild.
them.
Yeah, I don't know if they do either. I know I have a truck now, my dad's truck. He passed away, and I got his truck. And every time I crank it up, because I heard on the news how they sound when they don't have that catalytic converter. They
Yeah.
sound rough, man. They sound terrible. So every time I crank it up, I make sure it sounds right. Yeah,
Sound okay. Yeah, I'm
right.
with you.
Yeah, man. Uh, so do you know any companies that were like winners for this?
There were, man. There were some winners, and again, there'll be some losers. And I guess we'll get the bad news out of the way first, man. And we talk
Okay.
about, yeah, how many companies did or did not meet, man. I think Wall Street's saying something that, as of I think the last day in October, that about 72%, give or take,
Hmm.
of companies that were reporting in the S&P 500
Yeah.
had beat Wall Street earnings expectations. All right.
Okay.
Now going back, I think if I'm not mistaken, over the last 5 years, it's been about a 77% beat. So it's not terrible, but the ones that did lose
Hmm.
really lost. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the Facebooks of the world, right? Google, I think Google's Q3 earnings were down. I mean, they missed on a
Okay.
bunch of different numbers.
Oh wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and you talk about things that are going on. Again, you talk about a slower macro economy, right? So the economy
Uh-huh.
slowing down, right? And the dollar is getting stronger, right? And
Yeah.
as the dollar gets stronger, you know what I mean. It's not you can't buy as much.
Right.
So, and I mean, again, you talk about things that people don't even think about. When it's like, man, what's going on? How come Google? I thought this was a great company. Why is it going down in price? Well, they own YouTube, right? So YouTube,
Yeah.
you talk about representing, something like a 2-year 2% decline year over year, right?
Yeah.
Comparing, and they had a revenue of $7 billion, right? So things like that are in the background that a lot of people don't see and they don't, what I mean, they don't know about.
Yeah.
So it's not just because Google is a bad company, what's going on, but there's so
Right.
many factors that get tied into it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were some positives with Google. I mean, there were some positives with, there's always positives. Google's not going anywhere. Microsoft's
Right.
not going anywhere. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A lot of these
Yeah.
companies, they're here to stay.
Yeah.
And but what the hardest part is, man, is just watching like, yo, when do we stop the bleeding? And people, what I mean, do I get out? Do I hold on? I think, to tell people, I'm not here to tell you whether you should sell or whether you should buy. I'm here telling you what I think,
Yeah.
is going to be in your best interest. But I say get a trading plan. And you got to stick to your trading plan. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I can give anybody an
Absolutely.
advice, man. You want to trade and you want to do it on your own.
Yeah.
Come up with a trading plan and stick to it, man. And be diligent on sticking to it. That and you got to be willing to take those losses sometimes and say, you know
Hmm.
what, man, I'm down. If your trading plan says 15% loss, then you're going to cut your losses and you move on to it.
Yeah.
You move on from that. But hold on to that plan, stick to it, because a lot of times people are like, bought at 100. Oh man, it's down to 90. Oh man, it's down to 80. Oh man, it's down to $60. You know what I mean? They're like, oh man, I'm just gonna hold on just in case it comes back. And before you know it, that company's down to, trading at $35 a share. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I look at it as though
Yeah.
like if I bought it at 100, if I bought one share at $100 and it dropped to 80, I'm still dealing with at least $80 in capital. If I get rid of it, take my losses and
Yeah.
find, another one. So
So then are we not to just to put the great Warren Buffett out there, man. Are we not? Do some of his philosophies, his old school philosophy, do they not work anymore?
No, they
So I,
do.
because I remember Warren Buffett saying, and I try to stick to this, and it's bit me a couple of times because I kept stocks long, but I haven't been in. So Warren Buffett was like, if you're not prepared for your stock to drop 50% and you to still hold on to it, then you don't even need to be in the market. So I mean, if your stock drops now, everybody's telling you to sell, sell, sell. If it drops 20%, I mean, Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of this
Ever.
generation. Yeah, he's guy. He said, man, and I remember him saying that he had to borrow money to keep his company because it had went down that much,
Yep.
and now it's but not everybody wants to get rich slow. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, that's a problem. And I mean, we're in a now society, right? So, the Warren Buffett method, all of those same principles still hold true today, man.
Yeah.
Where Warren Buffett, I think, where people don't follow along as close as they should is, when everybody else is being greedy, Warren Buffett is leery and kind of just waiting it out and seeing.
Hmm.
And then when everybody starts to get leery and everybody, the fear starts setting in the market and everybody, oh, sell, 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 he goes in and he sees it as a buying opportunity and it's time to go buy these companies. And he does not just invest in anything, man. He does his research. He's
So
big
what
on
is
arbitrage. I mean,
yeah.
I read one of his books, man. There was an interview I think they did with him and Jay Z and Forbes or something like that. I mean, it might
Hmm.
have been a source. And so when they walked in for the interview, that Warren Buffett was reading something like the 1957 Ford report. I'm like, why are
Hmm.
you reading that? He's like, because they were very successful back then, and I want to know what they were doing then.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
all of his principles still stay true, man. Difference between myself and Warren Buffett and 90% of America is that Warren Buffett has enough capital on hand where he can hold out and wait and buy 1,000 more shares or 2,000, 20,000 more shares of a company.
Exactly.
Some people here are using this for their retirement and sometimes using it. I mean, because it's hoping to help make money.
Right. So I mean, I agree with that also, to a point, but my point is, if so who are the people? Like, if you say, if Warren Buffett is saying, when people are greedy, be leery. When people are leery, be greedy. Who are the people you're watching? Because so I sort of hear now, different stuff I read and people I talk to, they always say follow the money, man. So
Yeah.
if the money is getting out, shouldn't we get out? Or if the money is buying, shouldn't we buy?
Yeah, and see, yes, they tell you to follow the paper trail, right? Follow the money.
Hmm.
The problem is, though, a lot of times that money that is moving, and we never see it. There's a lot of these
Right.
institutions are trading dark pool transactions, so people have no idea. When you wake up in the morning, like, man, why did this thing gap down or gap up? I'll show you all this stuff on a chart, and it's
Yeah.
because you get a lot of these things that are, moving price and all that stuff, and you
Okay.
don't know. And again, remember, for every buyer in the market, there's a seller in the market. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
So you're saying follow the money. It's where yes, people are getting out, but then you got a lot of like the bears right now shorting these companies and bringing them down and making money as the price is going down.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like, you know what, I'm going to hold on, right? So the money's leaving. Well, guess what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. And then once this thing starts to bottom out, now it's time to start buying it. So if you had something like, Amazon, we'll just say was trading at $150,
Hmm.
and then it's down to 125, it's down to 110. Well, the entire way down, Warren Buffett's like, all right, I'm going to buy a little bit, and I'm going to buy a little bit, and that's another viewpoint or another strategy people use is trying to average
Right.
down. I mean, I feel as though if you are a firm believer in that company and what that company does,
Hmm.
and you want to hold out, then hold out. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like if it's
Right.
something that you believe in. Like to me, if Apple right now dropped down to $8 a share, I'm not selling Apple. And that's one thing you don't trade Apple, you buy Apple. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
companies like that, yeah, I'm okay buying that stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, and just continue to average down. I mean, that'd be great if I can get Apple at $7 a share right now. I'd jump all over it. You know what I mean?
So would I. So would I. I mean,
Yeah,
me and a friend of mine, we had a $75 price point for Apple, but I don't think it's gonna get that low.
man. Let me see here. Oh yeah, no, $70 price point, boy. You got a long way to go.
Hey, the world got to get bad for Apple to get.
Yeah, man. And you see Apple's like, oh yeah, new iPhone 14, new iPad coming out, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Oh, we're cutting production. Apple stock isn't really affected by that stuff, man. Like,
Not hardly.
you,
That's
you
it.
trade. I mean, you don't trade Apple, you buy Apple, and you hold on to it, man.
It's almost, it could be considered a pandemic buster. You know what I'm saying? Like there are certain stocks that I feel like are pandemic busters, and I feel like Apple could be one because you could get it, and it's not, your portfolio is not going down that much even in a pandemic, and it didn't because I got Apple, and
Yeah,
it's been solid the whole time.
and it's different than some of the other ones like the Pelotons and all that stuff because guess what? After the pandemic, I'm still using that phone. During the
Hmm.
pandemic, I'm on that Apple device, so it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
wasn't like some of these
Yep.
other ones where the door dashes and all that stuff where people are like, hey,
Right.
I can't go out to eat. You know what I mean? So, but Apple, look, man, Apple is here to stay,
Yeah.
and as
Yeah.
long as people are using their products, they ain't going anywhere, man.
And after the pandemic, Zoom took a little hit, but
Oh yeah,
we still using Zoom. This is Zoom right here.
oh
Shout
for
out to Zoom.
sure. Yeah, shout out to Zoom, man, for especially for the free. And I'll tell you, and you know as well as I do, man, being an educator, what they did, man, to allow for us to use it for free, man, to be able to still teach
Hmm.
kids. I mean,
Yep.
that speaks volumes about that company.
Yep.
Regardless of
Absolutely,
how
man.
Wall Street and everybody else feels, man, they stepped in and they had an answer right away
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
everybody else was scrambling to figure out, hey, what do we do? I mean, this is unheard of, man. This is something that's never happened in the history of our generation, or probably the last two generations, that you had to worry about, the world. I mean, the world shutting down.
Absolutely,
So
man.
yeah,